All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you guys for coming to this convocation this morning. So I'm going to be talking about a growth mindset and advancing your career with a graduate degree. So let me tell you why I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this. It really has to go with my path through my education and my career. So going back 3 kids ago, back when I was 25, I was in the online bachelor's degree here at University of Mary in Fargo. At that point, I was working at Target as a team lead, and I had worked my way up enough where they wanted me to be promoted to an executive team leader, and unfortunately, they wouldn't promote me unless I had a bachelor's degree. And so that brought me to University of Mary. I should say, unfortunately, it was a good thing, because it caused me to go back to school. And I completed my bachelor's degree, got to the executive team lead role, and after I got done with my degree, my bachelor's degree, my advisor at University of Mary said, "Hey, Jeff, have you thought about the MBA program?" And I probably looked at her confused because I had no clue what an MBA was. I'm a first-generation college student. None of my family's ever been to college, so I had no clue. And I was too afraid, too embarrassed to even ask the question, "What are you talking about?" So I just walked away. I didn't say, I said, "Nope, not interested." And ever since then, my concern is how many of our own students, how many people out there just don't know the ins and outs of graduate degrees. When you guys are in high school, your high school counselors always talk about going to college. And a lot of times when you're here at University of Mary or any college you're at, everyone talks about what's your career path. But there's another step in there. There's the idea of graduate degrees and the idea of mastery. And that's kind of the path there. So this whole thing is just my way of sharing with you guys what I wish someone would have shared with me back when I was 25, so I could have made more informed decisions. So here's what I'm excited to tell you guys about is the pursuit of mastery and finding your vocation instead of looking for just a job, and how a growth mindset and a master's degree is the pathway to achieve both of those. And then things everyone should know about a graduate degree. And then also, I found out along the way in my study of the growth mindset and mastery, there's something better than happiness. And I want to share that with you guys. But right now, I have a lot of concerns right now that we're hearing in the workplace. And you might hear this on the news, or if you're doing any research right now, the Americans say only 32% of workers are engaged at work right now. And only 77% feel that their skill set is being underutilized. So in their job, they're not even being able to use the skills that they've learned. And then worst of all, only 18% of workers experience the level of purpose that they desire at work. And everyone's talking about this work-life balance demands. It's growing more and more. But I don't think that's the problem. I don't think it's a work-life balance problem. What I think we're struggling with is a work-purpose balance. And that's the whole idea behind a vocation instead of a job. It's finding that calling. It's finding out what are your talents, what are your gifts that God gave us. We all got gifts from God for a very specific purpose. And our job is to figure out what that purpose is, and then how can we apply it? Because gifts are supposed to be given. They're for giving. Is figure out how do we give those to the world. And then when we do that, though, then our job doesn't become this transactional mindset right now that I worry about, where people are just worrying about how much money they're making. What's the benefits? It becomes transformational, where it changes who you are, and you get this greater joy in life when you have that vocation. And every time I go to Mass on Wednesday, when we do our prayer at the end, this always catches me, is how do we respond, again, to that gift that our Creator, that our God gave us for our vocation. So let's walk through it. This is coming from a book by Arthur Brooks and Oprah Winfrey. It's called Build the Life You Want. And this is what I was talking about. I found out from them there's something better than happiness. And what that is fulfillment. That's enduring happiness. Because happiness will come and go. But what you're looking for is fulfillment. And what you need is these 4 things. You need to find your purpose. Why did God create you? What are the talents and gifts He gave you? And the way you find those is through joy. And what I define joy as is a combination of happiness and energy. So it's the things, the gifts, the talents you have that you just love doing and you love sharing. And the best thing you can do if you don't know what your purpose is focus on finding out what gives you joy and energy, and that should lead you to finding your vocation. And then we're all built for relationships. The keys is you can't find mastery, you can't find success without help. And on the flip side, once you do then you help others. So it's a beautiful cycle. And then the last one on the bottom right, which we'll talk about more here, is the idea of mastery. I think we all have this desire to master something in our life. And what I worry about, and Arthur talks about this, if we don't find that purpose, what a lot of times we get caught into is pleasure instead of actually fulfillment. And I think the best example, we probably all have a family or a friend that does this, where they're more dedicated to their hobbies. They're more dedicated to hunting or golf or mountain biking, where every time they get done with work, they're investing all their free time to master those hobbies. And what you want to try to do, and I'm not saying the hobbies are bad, but how can you apply that kind of passion for your work? And then that's where you start becoming that vocation instead of a job. So purpose, joy, relationships, and mastery. So what is mastery? Mastery is the purpose of reaching the process of reaching the highest level of skill, knowledge, or expertise in a particular field through dedicated effort, practice, and learning over time. It's a journey, and the joy lies in the path of mastery, and that's where you get that fulfillment. It's not the destination, it's the journey. And according to Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Outliers, he says it takes about 10,000 hours or approximately 10 years to achieve that mastery. But I think that's a caution. I don't think it's always going to be 10,000 hours. If you're going to try to go it alone, it actually could be a lot longer. Because if you're trying to attain mastery, you're going into knowledge that's unknown to you. You're trying to discover more knowledge than you have today. And if you try to do it by yourself, what ends up happening is you're going to attain mastery at a walking pace. But if you do it through a mentorship or for a graduate degree, now we're jogging, now we're running. And now we can get to that maybe even less than 10 years. Carol Dweck is a professor at Stanford, and she kind of coined this term, the growth mindset. I think about 30 years ago is where her book was. And you probably heard about this somewhere along school, very popular. But what a growth mindset is believing that a person's abilities aren't innate, but can be improved through effort, learning, and persistence. A growth mindset is all about the attitude with which a person faces challenges, how they process failures, and how they adapt and evolve as a result. So it means that you just have a belief that you're always capable of more. Your learning, your talents are not finite, they're infinite. But it takes to have this growth mindset. And through Dr. Dweck's research, there's been a lot of studies on this now that show that the key indicator for a lot of mastery, a lot of success for people, is they all have this kind of growth mindset to them. When I was younger, I always thought it was all about just working hard and figuring it out. But it's much more than that. You need more. You need this growth mindset. So we walk you through what that growth mindset looks as you're trying to go on that path to mastery. So on the other side of the growth mindset, there's this idea of a fixed mindset. And usually what happens when you start adapting a fixed mindset, it comes from the big three, I always say. It comes from our doubts, our fears, and our failures. And the more we have to overcome those doubts, those fears, and those failures, it starts to make us have this fixed mindset where it's just hard to keep overcoming them. I'm not good enough. I can't get over those hurdles, whatever they might be. So this one breaks down kind of the differences between fixed and growth mindset. So fixed mindset is, I'm avoiding challenges. I'm just not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do it. Where a growth mindset, you see everything as an opportunity for growth. Feedback. I don't like feedback. I don't like conflict, so I'm going to avoid it. Where if you have a growth mindset, lean into it. Remember, when people are giving you feedback, most people are doing it out of care. They're trying to help build you up, but you got to be open-minded to receive that feedback so that you can keep growing. For a fixed mindset, you get focused on proving yourself, where if you have that growth mindset, it's all about improving yourself. It's focusing, how do I keep getting better? And then the fixed mindset, really, people with a fixed mindset think that their talent is static. Again, I can only do with what I'm given, and it's not enough for me to keep growing. Where that's not true. We are all capable of so much more. Again, when God created us, He created us for greatness. He didn't create us for being mediocre. The same thing happens every time we woke up. We don't wake up to have a mediocre day or mediocre life. But somewhere along the line, we forget that. We get into this fixed mindset. But it's important to note that mindset, it's a choice. We always have a choice between a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And this is probably my all-time favorite quote here by Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning. If you haven't read it, read it. It's not a long book, but it'll really change the way you view life. But Victor says, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And then in that response lies our growth and our freedom. So whenever you're faced with stimuli, and again, the big three are always the tough ones, but that usually push us into that fixed mindset, is doubt, fear, and failure. Is take a second when you're faced with that stimulus and think about your response before you respond, because you always have the choice. Am I going to face that failure, that fear, with a fixed mindset, or am I going to seize that opportunity in a growth mindset to do something about it? And I think what happens is we get on this autopilot or default setting on the challenges that always catch us. It might be, say, public speaking. I'm just not a good public speaker. I hate conflict. I'm not good at this subject in class, or whatever those might be. And what happens over time then is we get this default setting whenever we're faced with that stimulus. If it's public speaking, I'm going to run away from it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to avoid it at all costs. And what we got to learn to do is turn off that autopilot decision that we're making in between stimulus and response and make the conscious decision, no, I'm going to do it different this time. I'm going to take it from a growth mindset, and I'm going to figure it out. Carol Dweck says, the trick to this, whenever you say, I can't do something, is you add yet. I can't do it yet. I don't know how yet. And it's just changing that mindset a little bit from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset over and over, and I'll make all the difference. So I believe there's 6 pillars of a growth mindset on that path to mastery. So we got humility, vulnerability, curiosity, self-discipline, grit, and active learning. So I'm going to walk you through them and give you just one pointer on each one of those of how you can apply that as you're going on that path, hopefully, to mastery. Humility. Humility is the virtue of all foundation, or the foundational humility, or virtue. It all starts there. I define humility as knowing the truth about yourself and living that truth. In short, humility is reality. And when you start thinking about on a path of mastery, where do I want to go? You got to first realize, where am I at? I got to understand my gifts, and I got to understand my struggles, and I got to understand what are my goals and where do I want to go. So I think the key for applying humility is self-reflections and awareness. Again, understand your gifts, but more importantly, what are the things you're good at that also give you energy, which I define as joy? And then you just got to find a way. Where in the world is that talented needed? Where are those gifts needed? And then find it, and then give away your talents. Find your purpose, find your why, find your calling. What was I meant to do on this world? And then I call it the VR gap. We all have this. We have the vision of who we are and the reality of who we are. And take some self-assessment time, awareness, and figure out, how big is that gap? And more importantly, how am I going to make sure I can shrink that gap so the vision of who I want to be tomorrow, I get closer and closer to that person. And then be aware of how little we know. I think Humility is two parts. It's knowing the truth about ourselves, but also just being aware of how little we know, and not becoming arrogant, and also then striving for, there's so much out there that I can learn, and that'll help you get into that growth mindset. Like I said, just last slide, turn off your autopilot when you're faced with stimulus before you respond. Think about it. Make a conscious choice. It's easy when the choice is easy. If you stop and pause when you're faced with stimulus, say, again, public speaking, I either am going to do a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. If you ask yourself that question, which do I want, the answer is always easy. It's easy when you ask yourself, do I want to do the right thing or the wrong thing? The problem is we don't ask ourselves before we make those decisions. And then self-study. Just learn about yourself, however you want to do that, whether that be a personality assessment, reading books, or just taking time to yourself and thinking about where am I at and where do I want to go. Vulnerability. Brene Brown says, vulnerability is not weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. And I strongly believe that. We get in this mindset that being vulnerable is weak. It's not. It's the ultimate act of courage to encounter, again, fear, failure, doubt. It's always those three things that usually hold us back. So I think the trick for that is always remember, failure is part of the learning process. It's the first attempt in learning. If you're gonna go for mastery or anything, if you want to grow, you're going to have failure. And don't be discouraged by that. Think of failure as that stepping stone, part of the process to where you're going. Then right along that is curiosity. I define that as the desire to be inspired by people, ideas, and experiences. And I think now having 4 kids of my own, I realize that more and more, it's so amazing how curious kids are. And then as they get older, you start to see that curiosity fade. And it gets even worse as we get adults. We just get less curious over time. I dubbed this my own law, the fundamental curiosity and capacity error. Give me a second. So I think there's an error in our thoughts always. So you got the green line there, and you got age on the bottom, horizontal, and you got vertical. You got the curiosity level from 1 to 10, or 0 to 10. And I think our learning capacity in green, we think it goes down as we get older. We think we get less capable with age, that the old dog can't learn new tricks. And it's wrong. Neuroscience has proven it, that our brains can keep growing and keep expanding it. It's interesting because, do we have any athletes here today? Who's my athletes? Perfect. So we know about every other muscle in our body that we can keep exercising well past 20s, well past 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. You can keep working out your whole life, and when you work out your muscles, they grow and expand and get stronger, right? There's no limit of time. Well, your brain's a muscle. It's the same thing. But we get this fundamental error thinking that our capacity is going to decrease over time. And actually with knowledge, unlike our bodies break down a lot faster than our brain does. Your work experience, all the good work you're doing in your bachelor's degree is helping you elevate your learning capacity. So this chart's all wrong. Your green actually goes up with time. The only time that it goes down is when you start adapting that fixed mindset. But as soon as you always respond to stimulus with growth mindset, the green will go up. But I think what happens and why do we have this error with our capacity? I think it ties with curiosity, which I think that's the other one that kind of naturally goes down as we get older. As we face those failures, fear, and doubt, we're just like, it's hard to overcome that. I become less curious. Do a self-audit. How many questions during the day do you ask? How many questions of why and how do you ask? And compare that to like 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago, in high school or in middle school, or when you're in elementary ed. We used to ask questions all the time. Stay curious. If there's nothing else you learn from me today, is learn how to stay curious, because that's going to create so many opportunities for growth. And you're not going to have to do anything. By just having an open mind where there's so much in the world I don't know, and I want to know, you'll get that growth mindset. Self-discipline, the ability to motivate oneself to improve, change, or reach a goal. As Abraham Lincoln said, is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. It's making sure you're not going for those pleasures maybe, and going for more of the joy and fulfillment in growing as a human being. So the one I like is the Kaizen method, which is a Japanese concept. It basically means continuous improvement. It means always trying to improve yourself, and the key to it is not making leaps and bounds. It's steady, progressive growth and continuing learning. And then the cycle on the right there you see is it takes you explore, you have that curiosity, then there's input. That's where you take in knowledge. That's what you're doing right now, is you're taking in knowledge right now. But then this next step, this is the key, where the growth starts happening, is output, is where you apply critical thinking and you start thinking in your head. And then you got to figure out, how do you apply that knowledge later? Be receptive to the feedback to make sure you're going in the right direction, and then to start the cycle over again. Constantly do that. They use the term muda or mutta. I'm not sure I'll pronounce it right. But the idea of that is all the junk in our life. It's all this activity that doesn't add value. And what they talk about is you got to figure out ways to keep cutting that down. And the first step is to do an assessment. I call it the entertainment to growth ratio. How much of your time during a day, during a week, during a month, are you spending on entertainment versus on growth? And the way I try to keep myself in check is using my phone. There's a lot of good tools for phone. There's 4 apps that are on the good side of growth and on the bad side of fixed mindset. My bad ones are Facebook. That's my only social media I do. And ESPN. I love sports. On my good side, I have the Libby app for listening to audiobooks, and I have my podcast app. And what I look at is on every week when you get that Sunday report, how much activity you have on your phone, is I want my Libby and my podcast to have more time spent on it than ESPN and Facebook. And I do a self-reflection every week, and I look at that and make sure it stays that way. And I've done it so long now, it's just a routine and habit. It's always on the positive side most times. During the holidays, Facebook gets me sometimes because I like to check in with family. But find those ways where you can audit yourself on how much am I spending on this entertainment stuff and how much stuff I spend on growth. Because what happens then is you become less bored. If you start to go down this entertainment path of pleasure, it's an empty cup. It doesn't fill you up. But when you have growth, you get that fulfillment, that enduring happiness, and it becomes contagious. They have studies all the time that says people who start working out more end up starting to read more. When you do one aspect of growth in your habits on a regular basis, it triggers more of those growth habits. And then develop Atomic Habits. That's a book by James Clear. And it's a great book. It gives you lots of great tips. His whole thing is, how do you develop the positive habits and how do you cut out the bad habits? And then his whole thing is, all you got to focus on is 1% of growth every day, every week, every year. Again, it's progression. It's not leaps and bounds. And all the habits is pretty simple. Good habits or bad habits. You want to identify the bad ones and the good ones. You want to make the good ones easy for you. You want to make them simple and where you can't not do it. And you want to make it hard for the bad habits. So he gives simple ones like, if you want to cut out watching TV, you hide the remote. You don't have the remote by the couch. You move it to your bedroom so that you have to consciously get out of your chair, and you have this whole stimulus response situation then. Do I really want to watch TV, or should I read a book? Or the other one would be is, if you're trying to encourage a good habit, say you want to do biking every morning, is put out your bike shoes, put out all the athletic wear you want to do in the morning, put it on the table, because you made a plan the night before then, you're more likely to follow through. So make it very intentional that you're going to do it, and it'll make you harder for you to say, nope, I'm not going to do it. Grit. I think a lot of times people think grit as hard work, but it's different. It's more than just being a hard worker. It's the determination, the courage to push through any challenge or obstacle until you succeed. Or as Pope Benedict said, the world promises you comfort, but we were not made for comfort. We were made for greatness, and we got to remember that. So I think the best way to visualize this idea of grit is growth zones. You got your comfort zone, That's your playing video games, me watching ESPN. You got your growth zone, and you got this burnout zone where you think that it's too much, I can't handle it. And I think we get these zones wrong. We think we get to burnout faster. And again, going back to the workplace concerns, people are all talking about work-life balance. I want to work less hours. I want to work from home. I don't think it's a burnout problem. What I think it is, it's a purpose problem again. People aren't getting that growth. They're not getting that fulfillment. They're staying in their comfort zone too much. So this is what their bubbles kind of look like. But what you do, you start applying this grit, where I call grit is when you get out of your comfort zone, because the growth zone is not comfortable. It's going to push you. But the more that you are able to just bear through it, and I'm going to do this no matter what to have growth, what happens is it starts leading to success. And then before you know it, this is what your zones look like. That comfort zone shrinks down, that growth zone gets bigger, and that burnout zone gets a little bit higher. Their example, I have this. I used to be a competitive mountain bike racer. And I used to do, every week I used to do a time trial at my same mountain bike course. It was a 3-mile loop. And every week I would just push it as hard as I could go. And I'd get done, and I would be just sweating, out of breath. The way we used to always joke when I was mountain biking with my buddies is, the way you know that you push it all the way to your limit is you get this kind of metallic taste in your mouth. If you're an athlete, have you ever had that? It's almost like there's like copper in your mouth. It's the weirdest taste you get to it. And that's usually when you're getting to the points of burnout. But I would time myself, and I'd be like, 20 minutes. And I'd be like, can't beat that. Like, no way. Go back next Tuesday. 19 minutes. I'm like, whoa, can't beat that. Train more. 17 minutes. 16 minutes. 15 minutes. And what was happening was, it was grit. It was grit that I'm going to keep pushing outside of my comfort zone. And what was happening was my growth zone was growing. The trick to athletics or anything as far as the pursuit of mastery is it doesn't get easier. Is remember that. What happens is you get stronger. And that's the difference, is you got to have that mentality that I'm going to get stronger. I'm not doing it to make it easy. And then you'll see that growth zone keep growing. And in active learning, to have a growth mindset, you have to be in active learning. It's taking knowledge, learn, and put it into practice. So again, the whole idea of learning, it's input and output, and then applying. So input is taking in knowledge. Output is critical thinking. That's when you start writing or you're giving a presentation. You're doing critical thinking and you're applying it. And that's where the growth starts happening. As I say, within 6 days, you forget 75% of what you've learned if you don't apply it. So you have to do more than just take in knowledge because you lose it. And this has been proven. Edgar Dale, I believe, came up with this learning theory pyramid a long, long time ago. And he breaks it down in what type of learning you're doing. And on the left-hand side here, it shows the average retention rate of each of those activities. So if you're just listening to a lecture, you're listening to me, you're only going to remember 5% of this later. If you're reading and now you're actually having to do a little bit of critical thinking, you get 10%. Demonstrations, where you get visual component to it, it boosts up to 30%. But all those in the top are just passive learning because it's all just mostly input. Once you cross that threshold of active, where now you have to apply critical thinking and then actually apply it, and now you either have to put something on pen and paper or you have to actually say it, look at the retention rate then. Now you're getting 50% retention rate. Or if you're practice by doing practice, 75%. And then the ultimate is teaching, 90% retention rate. So I always think about this for athletes. When I was a mountain biker, I always trained by heart rate. That was the best way for a mountain biker to train. It was to evaluate their heart rate, because you trick yourself, be like, man, I'm breathing really hard, I'm doing a good workout, and you look at your heart rate, 150 beats per minute. Yeah, I'm not. So you always want to push that heart rate up. And what I think you got to think about for the growth mindset and for trying to gain knowledge is a mind rate. Are you learning at a walking pace by just listening to a podcast? Or are you jogging by going to a book club or going to class and not just listening, but asking questions, being active in discussions? Or are you sprinting where you're doing presentations or you're starting to be the teacher then? So you always got to think about what kind of rate am I actually learning at and growing at. All right, so that's the growth mindset. So let's pivot a little bit here. So this will be the part where I want to tell you everything that I wish everyone knew about graduate degrees, or more importantly, this is a presentation I wish I would have heard when I was 25. And I can't do anything about that, so I'm just hoping that this will help anyone else that's thinking about where am I going with my future, what am I going to do with my career, what am I going to do with my education. I just want to walk you through some of the common things you should know about graduate degrees as you're discerning those sorts of things. So this pyramid is showing the American population, how many people have that level of education. So right now, according to the census, high school, 90% of Americans have a high school degree. Once you get your bachelor's degree then, now you're in the 38% group of Americans. But then look what happens when you go up to that master's degree. Now you're in the 14% club. And then you go to the doctoral level, you're even more exclusive, the 3% club. But what that does for you, it sets yourself apart, but it creates so many more opportunities when if you're part of only the 14% of Americans that have a master's degree, when you're going into interviews or looking for jobs, it sets you apart. And the good thing about education is it never expires. When you're looking for that kind of, I would say, the dream job, how do I get a dream job? I think it comes down to a couple things for how you can get to a dream job. You can know someone. You can have a referral. Maybe your dad owns a business. That's one way you could do it. Experience. Experience will get you stuff on your resume. It'll help you set apart as you're working. You need confidence. Whatever interview you're going in, you're going to have to sell yourself. And you might be, maybe you're just a great speaker, and maybe that'll be enough. But the fourth one is education. But of all those four things, the education, it never goes away. You never know. I've had probably 20 bosses in my career. Some of them I loved. Some of them were a real struggle for me. Some of them I didn't get along. Some of my bosses thought the world of me, and they promoted me. And some of my bosses thought, nope, Jeff's not capable of anything more. So if you're going to try to grow in your career based on relationships, you never know what's going to happen. People move. People leave jobs. So that's not a safe bet. Experience, again, that's a good one to have. It is going to take time. And then you got confidence. The good thing about education is, what I got most, I call it the X factors of any degree you get, is you get more confident. Probably the assignments you don't like doing, whether it be public speaking or research and writing, all the writing you guys got to do. Writing doesn't go away. When you get into careers, you have to write a lot of emails. If you get to a certain level, you might be writing proposals. After I got my master's degree, my ability to write emails and proposals all went up just organically by having to go through that kind of uncomfortable growth of trying to get better as a writer. So it all helps you as far as building confidence by just going through education. But again, education, it opens so many doors for you, you won't even be aware of it until it happens. The story I always share is, I was working at Target when I was going for my MBA. I was looking for a new path because I wasn't finding the purpose, the fulfillment in retail. Selling toilet paper wasn't doing it for me. I wanted to do something more with my life. I wanted to make a difference out there. And then once I got done with my MBA, and actually I already took the job here at University of Mary, I got a call from headquarters, Target headquarters. I'd worked there for like 18 years. I had never once had a call from headquarters like that one. And what the lady told me, she goes, "Hey, Jeff, I saw you just completed your MBA. You took tuition benefit. I want to talk about what's your future. Have you thought about anything more than just store side? Have you thought about doing something maybe at Minneapolis at headquarters here? I'd love to talk to you about it." And I just thought in my mind, I'm like, I did 18 years of hard work, experience, relationships, and none of that got that phone call. But as soon as I got that MBA now, it went on someone's radar that maybe Jeff has more to give, more potential. Maybe we should talk to him. Obviously, I didn't take the offer. I came here, and I'm grateful for that. But that's the point. It opens up these doors just by the fact that you have that on your resume, that you're a master's degree. We have 3 common barriers for the admissions teams I hear all the time. When we have people, applicants, inquiries that are discerning about, should I go back for my master's degree? These are the questions that are in these buckets. It always comes down to time, cost, and confidence. Those are the big ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through my responses to those questions. So let's talk about time. So bachelor's degree, you guys are doing it right now. Bachelor's degree, it's 124 credits, bare minimum to get a bachelor's degree. That's 40 classes it takes you to get to a bachelor's degree. That's why it takes about 3 to 4 years for you to get that. Master's degrees, most of them start at 36 credits. It's 12 classes. It's a lot quicker path to get to your master's degree than your bachelor's degree. And I want to stress this because if someone would have told me when I was 25, hey, Jeff, you can get your MBA and it's only going to take 12 classes. When I first looking at graduate degrees, I thought I was like 2 to 3 years I was planning for the time it would take me to get my MBA. But you can complete some of our programs in as little as 1 year, and you can get to that 14% of the population. It's a whole different format. It's an accelerated format. What accelerated format basically means is instead of taking 4 to 6 classes at a time for 15 weeks, you do 1 to 2 courses at a time. The courses are usually either 7 weeks long or 5 weeks long. For like the MBA program, if you do 1 course at a time, it's 2 years. If you do 2 courses at a time, you can get it done in a year. But what's nice about that format that I like better than my bachelor's degree is it allows you not to stretch your mind so far, thinking about different courses, different concepts. It's really hard to pivot from ethics to accounting to whatever other course you have. That's a strain on there. The master's degree, you get to kind of focus in on each one of those courses a little bit more. Now, I'm not going to tell you that that makes it easier, but what I found in my master's degree, I found it to be more manageable having to focus on 1 or 2 courses at a time versus trying to do that 4 to 6. It's flexible, so all of our programs are online learning. Well, almost all of them are online learning for master's degrees. So you can do it from anywhere and at whatever time works best for you. For me, I'm a night owl, so I like doing my studies at like 10 o'clock at night. But if you want to do it at 6 in the morning or 2 p.m., so it's asynchronous. What asynchronous means basically is there's no set login times. You do the coursework when it makes sense for you. And all the programs are designed for the working professional. And so what they're designed for is, if you want to, start your career and start your degree at the same time. I completed my MBA working 50, 60 hours a week in retail with 4 kids when I was 35. It can do it. The biggest thing I want you to do is don't do it when you're 35. Do it when you're in your 20s. And that's actually my biggest goal. So let me say that again. The biggest thing I'm focused on right now, my number 1 goal for being director of online is, right now, the average age for our graduate students to start a graduate degree is 33 years old. That's the average age when they start. And I was 35 when I started. I added to that number. What I'd love to see in 5 years from now is I want to see that average age to be in the 20s. And that's the biggest thing I want you guys to think about it. If you have in your mind, in your goals, I want to get a master's degree, I'm not going to tell you have to do it right after your bachelor's degree. There's a whole lot. You can make an argument that get some experience first and then go back for your master's degree. That's fine. I'm not going to argue with that one. But what I'm going to argue with is don't wait 10 years. Don't be like me and wait until you have a full family. And I had to sacrifice a lot with my kids and my family to get my degree. Think about it in your 20s. Make that timeline, because it's easy once you get done with that bachelor's degree, be like, okay, I got in my job. I got that team lead position. I was really excited when I got my first team lead position at 21. I thought I had it made. I don't need education. I made it. It's wrong because I wanted more. I wanted to achieve that mastery, and I couldn't do it by my own. I found out now. So make it your goal. If master's degree is your goal, help me reach my goal. Do it in your 20s, not in your 30s. Costs. Yes, education, it's an investment, and it is expensive. But be aware, master's degree, looking at it without scholarships compared to bachelor's degree without scholarships, it's about half the cost for a master's degree, about average. And it's not because it's less expensive cost per credit, but again, it's that math. Bachelor's degree, 124 credits versus 36 credits. You pay more per credit, but it's so much less credits that you have to pay for, it ends up being significantly less to get your master's degree. And if you need help, as far as you can't just pay for it out of pocket, I wouldn't imagine you could, you can get FAFSA loans as a graduate student. That was one question I didn't know when I was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know if I can get federal loans. How am I going to pay for this? Some programs have grants. We're seeing more and more grants, especially from state and federal agencies, especially for those in healthcare and behavioral sciences. So be aware. Graduate assistant positions here at University of Mary, you can be a GA. And what we do for our GAs then is we give them a really, really generous scholarship. It varies by GA position, so don't ask me how much it is. But that's another option that you can work as a student, as a GA, and get your graduate degree. And at any point, if you're ever looking at going back for school and you're working somewhere full-time, go to your HR manager, go to your website, and look for employee tuition benefits. I'm seeing this more and more often. We get students that come in and they start taking class, and then I'll run into them through conversation, and I'm like, did you get tuition benefit? What does your employer do? I didn't know I had tuition benefit. We're seeing more employers are not advertising their tuition benefits to their employees. It's on their website, especially now with more remote work. They're just not talking to their HR managers, but most employers have tuition benefits, and some of them are really significant where you can have cost savings where they'll pay for your degree. For me, for Target, it was $5,000 a year is what Target paid for me to get my MBA to help me out with that. So if you're working full-time and you're thinking about going back to school, looking for tuition benefits, see what it is. And then on average, individuals with a master's degree earn 20% more than those with a bachelor's degree. It's an investment that's going to pay you back. It's going to open up more doors for more opportunities to grow your salary. And then we offer up to $10,000 in alumni scholarships. We just re-looked at our scholarships as a whole, and our leadership team at University of Mary, we wanted to make sure that you guys, the future alum, you guys get the highest level of scholarships for University of Mary. So we'll help you out to make sure that your master's degree is affordable, just like your bachelor's degree. And then confidence. So going back to that fundamental curiosity and capacity here, your capability for learning and obtaining knowledge does not go down. It's the opposite. It goes up with experience. What you're doing now in your bachelor's degree is preparing you for graduate degree. And I think in our mind, when we go from like high school to bachelor's degree, think back when you were 18, you're probably a little nervous, like, I don't know if I'm ready for it. We always think it's going to be like this big leap every level of education. But really what it is just the next step. It's not a big leap. It's the next step. High school to bachelor's degree to graduate degree, graduate degree to doctoral degree. Yes, it's more rigor, but what you're doing right now is preparing you for that rigor. The other thing, too, is be aware there's no generals. The nice thing about graduate degrees, it's the idea of that pursuit of mastery. It's called a master's degree for a reason. It's a time where you get to specialize, you get to focus all your effort on the subject you want to become a master in. And I hear it all the time. People really end up enjoying their master's degree more than their bachelor's degree because they get to do all the classes that they love. They don't have to do the classes that maybe they struggled with. You know, we all had a general we didn't like, whether it be English, math, theology. There might have been something where that wasn't what you're interested in or good at. But you don't have that for the master's degree. You also get this more autonomy. You get to pick your topics a little bit more in your research and writing. And then like always, you're going to still have the same amazing faculty you have now that are going to be supporting you. You're going to have advisors. So we'll walk with you on that journey. We'll take you from registration to graduation, and we'll be there for you. So let's break down what we got here at University of Mary. So we got 25 graduate and doctoral programs, all very affordable. We are competitive not just with private universities, but we are also just as competitive with state universities as well on our programs. Online learning, again, they're designed for the working professional. You can get your degree and you can be in your career at the same time. You don't have to adjust your work schedule to get that master's degree. Flexible, we'll design degree plans that work for your life. And then we have 25 years of experience of online learning experience for the graduate programs. We were one of the first pioneers in in North Dakota, we were one of the first that started offering online or offering evening courses for working professionals. And again, great faculty and advisors. I'm not going to go through all the programs, but I'm just going to show you some of the lists here. We got the Gary Tharaldson School of Business. Here's some of the master's degrees we have. We got the MBA, DBA, Master of Organizational Leadership. The cool thing about our Master of Business Administration, it's focused on true leadership. And then what I love about it is you get to pick a specialization. So how it's built is you get 9 core courses for the MBA. You have to take all those. But the last 3 courses, you get to specialize, and you get to pick from any of those categories. That way you can be ready for whatever career path you want to choose. Is it healthcare? Is it HR? Is it project management? So it's going to be a very practical degree, but it's also going to have a nice core of liberal arts as well. We got the Lifford Family School of Education and Behavioral Sciences. We got the Master of Education. We also got counseling. And we also have the newest one is social work, where there is just more and more need for mental health. St. Gianna School of Health and Science, I break it down into 2 sides. We have the nursing programs, so you can go all the way from master's in nursing all the way up to a doctor of nurse practitioner. And we have a lot of different specializations in the healthcare, if that's your field, whether it be for informatics, leadership, educator, and then we have 2 dual degrees as well, MSN MBA, so Master of Business Administration, or MSN MS in Bioethics to offer. Then the other side of the St. Gianna School of Health Sciences, I call them the healthcare professions. That's your occupational therapy, your physical therapy, athletic training, speech, language pathology. We got bioethics, kinesiology, clinical exercise physiology. So a lot of different options. And then the last school is School of Arts and Science. We have the Applied Catholic Theology, Apostolic Leadership in Catholic Studies, our dual degree, an MBA and MA in philosophy. So if you're someone that loves philosophy, loves to think about the world from a 60,000 viewpoint, but still wants that practical component of the MBA, that might be the degree for you. And then for our creative people, we got the Master of Arts in Music. My final thoughts here again on this concept of pick a growth mindset or a fixed mindset is think about this. In my response to stimulus, in that space, I call that my power space. How am I going to respond? And if you pick that growth mindset, what's going to happen is you're not going to be searching for opportunities anymore. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating opportunities for yourself, and they're just going to come to you. You're not going to know when they're going to come to you, but they will. But again, the biggest thing for that growth mindset, it is the path to both mastery and, more importantly, that fulfillment, that enduring happiness, that joy that's going to energize you throughout your life. And it's addicting. Once you start going down that path of growth mindset, it really changes things. Here's a list of all the books that I read all this stuff from. So none of these were my ideas. This is all from great books, great authors here. I'll put this back up if you want to take pictures at the end here. But this is a list of where I got this content from. What we do after we break here, we're going to do a little Q&A. But before we do Q&A, outside these doors, you probably saw it when you came in, I have the online admissions team, so all of our graduate programs. I got some faculty out there as well at tables. You'll see signs. It'll say what program they represent. Take some time, ask some questions, learn more about these graduate degrees, just so you can see if that's something that you want in your path to mastery. Otherwise, you can always find us in the lower level of the Benedictine Center for admissions team. There's our email, our phone number. Otherwise, reach out to me directly. There's my phone number. There's my email. Whatever I can do to help with your guys' discernment, to help you with your career path, your education, your path for mastery, whatever you need. It's what I get most excited about is helping people to do it faster than me. Do it in your 20s, not your 30s. All right, we'll open up to some questions here. We'll do mic though because we have a recording. 5 minutes. Yeah. Any questions for me at all?
Hi. I was wondering, how do you know what MBA you would want to, pursue if you don't know like what type of like career exactly you want to go into? Like not what field, like I know what field I want to go into, but I'm just kind of confused as in what exact MBA would be the
Which
right fit.
specialization you
Yeah.
want to choose, yeah. The good thing is, my experience when I went through the program is you got those 9 core classes that you're gonna have to take first. And sometimes actually just going through those classes, it might come to you because you're gonna get a taste of all the different ways that you can go in your business path for your career. Otherwise, you just gotta do, again, it's kind of that self-reflections assessment is what really gets you excited? What are the things that you love doing? For example, for me, I love working on teams. I love collaboration and I love discernment. I love just figuring out how to fix problems and how to develop strategies to improve things. And so that led me to a director role. So as you're doing class work, think about the things that was really fun to work on. What were the topics that just kind of energize you, and let that kind of be your compass. Does that make sense? And ask faculty, ask any of your teachers too to help you with that. Good question. All right, perfect. Well, I'll let you guys get back to class here. Thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your day.